Yeah, what up? This is just going to be my predictions and preview slash thoughts of TNA's pay-per-view that's coming up this Sunday exclusively on pay-per-view, the TNA Bound for Glory pay-per-view. And just like probably a lot of people are going to say, this isn't a good card. It's not a terrible card. It does have a little promise to it. Some matches could be good, but I feel, TNA, calling this their biggest pay-per-view, they should have put something a whole lot better on here. And I think there's matches like, Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles, that should be, the main event. I think, people for a tag title feud would love to see, Motor City Machine Guns versus LAX and, a tag feud and give them actually time. Don't just give them, a 5 to 6 minute bullshit Impact match. Give them actually a full-length pay-per-view match. Then there's other stuff. Now, the Angle and Jarrett match, I'm okay with that match being on here because in some people's eyes, it might be a dream match. I don't view it as a dream match due to the fact I'm not that much of a fan of Jeff Jarrett. On the other hand, I do think Kurt Angle is a hell of a wrestler. Could be a good match. Now, let me just get on to my thoughts on this. And for anyone that thinks I'm just bashing this pay-per-view just for the hell of it before it even airs, now if it ends up being good, I'll say it's good. If it's bullshit, I'm going to say it's bullshit. So guess we'll just have to wait and see how it pans out Sunday as far as the quality of the card goes. And, a lot of people are probably going to say, why are people, bashing this card when, a WWE pay-per-view like WrestleMania, WWE's biggest pay-per-view, and they just throw on, a couple random matches and, not the best card. Well, the reason why WWE can get away with that is because they have a over 40-year lineage, and WrestleMania is one of those things where no matter what they put on there, just with the name WrestleMania, and that's almost synonymous with wrestling. I mean, when people think of wrestling, they probably think of, Hogan, Rock, and then probably WrestleMania. A lot of people, when they think of WWE, they still call it WWF. So, WrestleMania is one of those things that no matter what, it always sells, and it always will sell just due to the name and no matter what they put on there. On the other hand, TNA is this upstart company, and, their buy rates aren't that high, and, just to think that, enough fans are going to go out their way that, support the company and want to make the company grow, just to give money to the pay-per-view are fucking idiots, because I would feel, people would look at this, even though Bound for Glory is the biggest card, they want at least good action on here. TNA, I think, WWE, they don't have to put the best wrestling on a pay-per-view for it to sell. TNA, on the other hand, if they want their, product to sell, they have to go a little different than WWE, have more of a wrestling-based product, which I feel sometimes they do, a lot of times they don't. Then definitely, improve their Impact program, because I feel nothing has been on Impact other than maybe if you're really interested in Kurt Angle and Jarrett, nothing on this pay-per-view other than that probably makes you say, hey, I want to see that. This has been built up good, because that's the only thing I will give credit. It's been built up good. It's been built up pretty good. I mean, you would think, that's the title match, whereas, you got Samoa Joe versus Sting for the TNA World Heavyweight title, which I think a lot of people wish that AJ Styles and Samoa Joe were in the TNA main event, and they would have, Motor City Machine Guns versus LAX for the tag titles, have some good, Ultimate X match or an X Division title match, because I even think the X Division title match is probably going to be lackluster on there. Now let me get to my predictions of this. Now, this match has probably been thrown together. I don't know if it's going to be the opening. Probably most likely will not be the opening. Let me go to the X Division title match, which most likely will be the opening, and that will be Sheik Abdul Bashir versus Consequences Creed for the X Division title. And obviously, a lot of people are probably already thinking that Consequences Creed is going to win this. The typical American versus anti-American, which I feel it works at times, but in this day and age, that stuff is so old school booking that it doesn't really get any heat like it did back in the day when the Iron Sheik was doing it. Back then it got heat. Nowadays it's just thrown together. Now it still somewhat gets heat, but not as much as it once did. Obviously, it's one of those things. I think TNA and WWE think still you can draw with doing the anti-American thing, but it isn't a draw as it once was. Now Davari I think is good on the mic, so he can probably talk you into this match. This should be a okay X Division match, not a great X Division match. Could be a decent match. Like I said, I do see Consequences Creed pick up the victory and winning the X Division title. And now go back to the throw together match they just thrown together on this pay-per-view. That is ODB, Rocket Khan, and Rhino versus the Beautiful People, Angelina Love, and Velvet Sky, and Kip James. And, this just match just basically got thrown together just recently. I think they, started building it up the last few weeks on Impact and, pretty much made it obviously obvious that it was going to happen at last night's Impact with, the run-ins they did with Rock Khan and ODB when the beautiful people were out there. So, you might see some decent stuff in here. It's probably not going to be that good of a match. Hopefully it'll be pretty short. And I do see the Faces picking up the victory here with Rhino, Rock Khan, and ODB picking up the victory. It's just one of those matches that TNA is throwing together just to put all the talent on this pay-per-view. And I think that's not a good thing to do. I think, I'd rather see more well-balanced stuff on this pay-per-view. And then the next match is for the TNA Knockouts title with defending Knockouts champion Taylor Wilde versus Amazing Kong versus Roxy. Now, this could possibly be a good women's match. I'm not that much of a fan of Taylor Wilde, as a lot of you probably already know by now. But I feel the stuff that Amazing Kong and Roxy are going to do in this match could be excellent. Really hoping that Roxy picks up the victory, and I do see her picking up the victory in here and becoming the new Knockouts champion. And she'll obviously pin Taylor Wilde, and so it will not hurt, the strength of Amazing Kong. We'll get the title off of Taylor Wilde. So in the long run, it will do good stuff and possibly build up to, a Roxy versus Amazing Kong feud, which I think will be overall very good. Then you got the Monsters Ball 4-way tag team match for the tag team titles with Beer Money Incorporated versus LAX versus Team 3D versus Abyss and Matt Morgan. This might be a good match. Team 3D are going to do good in here because the hardcore environment. Beer Money Incorporated, I'm not that much a fan of them, but I will say they're starting to get over and starting to actually work good as a team within the last a few months. They have been teaming up and starting to get better. LAX, I'm a huge fan of them. This whole Abyss and Matt Morgan thing, not liking, but unfortunately, I see possibly Abyss and Matt Morgan picking up the victory in here, with Abyss overcoming his fears, using weapons, and picking up the victory. Or if they don't do something like that, Beer Money Incorporated will retain. I do see them losing the titles. I would say not completely unfortunately, because I'm not that much of a fan of them, but I will say I think they should be at least champions for a little bit longer. Then have LAX win the titles, or the Motor Machine Guns win them, give one of them a good push, then branch it off in a feud with those two teams. So I feel if you put LAX versus Motor Machine Guns in at least a 4 to 5, possibly 6 month tag team feud, you could really rejuvenate the whole tag team division in TNA. Then you got the Steel Asylum match, which was called the Terror Tome, back at the May Sacrifice pay-per-view, and obviously everyone knows what's going to happen here. You're going to see the debut of Suicide, a.k.a. Kaz's new gimmick. So Kaz is going to pick up his victory as his new gimmick. Suicide, I don't know how long they're going to run with. I guess as long as it works. If it doesn't work, obviously they're not going to work. They're not going to keep going with it. Then the next match is Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle, and with a special guest enforcer, Mick Foley. And actually, speaking of guest enforcers and special refs, and I forgot to mention in the 4-way Monsters Ball match, they're going to have Steve Mongo McMichael for some reason being the guest referee, obviously due to the fact he's a former Chicago Bear, and obviously he's pretty much a local celebrity in Chicago, so I guess it makes sense in there, but I don't think anyone's going to care about seeing him on this pay-per-view because he's, I would say, Paul Roma's obviously the worst horseman, but he's probably easily the second worst horseman of all time. I don't think anyone cares about seeing him. Now, as far as this Angle versus Jeff Jarrett match, it's probably going to be a good match, not a great match. They have been building it up good, so I got to say, even though it's been, booked together, less than a month or so, they've been building it up and giving it a lot of focus on Impact. Like I said earlier, you would think that this is the main event, not Samoa Joe and Sting. Just the way they've been building it up, the way they've been doing it. But I do see in here, Kurt Angle picking up the victory, and this will lead to possibly a Kurt Angle versus Mick Foley feud down the line. Because I feel Jeff Jarrett, he's probably going to come in and he's not going to be there full time, so I feel possibly this could lead up to something good with Mick Foley versus Kurt Angle. Because Mick Foley, I heard that his deal's only for about 6 months, so hopefully they do some good stuff with Foley there if he only is there for 6 months and doesn't extend his time after that time is up. So hopefully they do some good stuff within that. Then you got the triple threat match with Booker T, AJ Styles, and Christian Cage, which if this was a singles match with Christian Cage and AJ Styles, I could feel it could be a great match. Booker's inclusion of it, I think, is going to really dumb down the match and is really going to hurt the quality of it. I do see AJ Styles picking up the victory, and I wish they would have this, be called, maybe a number one contenders match. Probably they'll do. I feel, the way it's been booked, the Jarrett and Angle match feels like it's number one contenders match, even though it isn't. So see AJ Styles picking up the victory here. Hopefully they'll do something good. Keep Joe champion, and I do see Samoa Joe retaining the title against Sting. Hopefully they do it. I do see it because they've basically been building it up that no one's been able to defeat Sting at Bound for Glory, and now they're going to do it and book it in a way that Samoa Joe finally overcomes it, defeats Sting at the TNA's so-called biggest pay-per-view, and they've been kind of doing this in his feud anyway. He finally defeated Angle at Lockdown. Then the Slammiversary, I think he was the first one to actually walk in as champ and walk out as champ. So, but overall his title reign hasn't been that good. So I do see him retaining. At least hopefully they do it. I don't think they'll give Sting the title because it would be completely pointless if they do give him the title. So yeah, that's my predictions of the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. Could be an okay pay-per-view. I can't see it being a great pay-per-view. Has some stuff I'm looking forward to. As a match, I could see Joe and Sting being good, but I would much rather see something else in the main event, like AJ Styles and Joe. The three-way could be decent at best. Kurt Angle and Jeff Jarrett could be good. Everything else might be at least solid. So it could be at least overall decent pay-per-view. But for TNA, I call this their biggest pay-per-view, and I feel they have to obviously go out their way more to prove it's their biggest pay-per-view than what WWE does. That it's not that good of a card. I don't think it's a card that unless you've been hooked in by the Jarrett and Angle feud and the way they've been building it up, I can't see you ordering this pay-per-view for anything else. So yeah, that's just my predictions of this pay-per-view. All right, peace.